Thank you, thank you. If I knew it was going to be this intimate, I would have brought wine for everybody, so I apologize.
So just a quick word about wine is something, wine and entrepreneurship are two things we cover a lot in Worth. Wine for obvious reasons, it's a passion. Entrepreneurship, because it really speaks to that concept of worth beyond wealth. We write about a lot of entrepreneurs and Worth. And many of them have done very well, but very few of them will say that they started their entrepreneurial journey because they wanted to get rich or because they thought it was a good way or an easy way to get wealthy. They did it because they were passionate, they had an idea, they saw a need, and along the way they create jobs, they create services, they make a product, they build a company. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And Femi, I guess I'd like to start by talking about no, that's not what I want to start by talking about. I want to start by talking about, let's fast forward a little bit. Tell me what Good Neighbor Sunday is.
Good Neighbor Sunday, okay. For those of you that, hello. I have a wine shop here and wine bar called Graft, and it's been open for about 6 years. And when we created the space, we really wanted it to be more than a wine shop. And for us, that meant creating a convivial neighborhood space where people who love wine or people that don't necessarily love wine, just people in general, people of the community could come and just enjoy themselves. And one of my, I think, people that I've always described to is Danny Meyer, and he wrote this book called Setting the Table. And in his book, he always detailed about how if you really wanted to make a successful restaurant, you need to make it resonate with the community in some way. And so our way of investing in the neighborhood is that we created this event that we do every week called Good Neighbor Sunday. And we open up the parking lot, we bring in a food truck, we have small vendors selling artistic or like jewelry or just kind of wherever. And we play music outside and we open up our door, and it's just become really monumental thing for us. And every week you can just, if you're ever driving by King Street, you'll see pools of people just staying outside, drinking wine, having a good time. And we do it from 3 to 6 p.m. So it's after brunch, it's before, whatever you're going to do at night. And if you can have a good time and be in bed by 8 p.m. And we've done that for about 5 years. And to us, it's one of our favorite things because it brings everyone together one day of the week. Everyone's relaxed. People bring their dogs, kids, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to come back to talk about that a little bit more, the impact of that. But so now let's go back to your beginnings. I want to hear about your wine journey, how you got to where you are. That's an interesting story.
Yeah, for sure. Wine is never something I would have anticipated seeing myself doing for a living. I knew nothing about wine. I think when I first I started working at a restaurant just a few clicks up the street called the Charleston Grill at Charleston Place.
And you're from Charleston?
No, I'm not from Charleston, but I've lived here for about 19 years now. Okay. So,
I don't know if Charleston is one of those places where that counts as being from Charleston or not. So,
no, I think if you talk to some Charlestonians, they're like, you need a couple generations. I cut my teeth at Charleston Grill and working there as actually like a busboy. And I knew nothing about wine. I was about 20 years old, and the wine director at the restaurant was just this incredible, affable, friendly guy. His name's Rick Rubel. And the way he would tell stories about wine, he's one of those people that could tell a story and you would just become obsessed with the details. And I'd go home and I'd read about what he would talk about. And I have a very obsessive personality. I can never do 15 miles an hour. I have to douse myself and go all in. And I just started reading about wine every day for hours before I'd go into work. And I think it was like eventually he was like, what are you doing? You know more than all of the servers here. Like, do you need help? And I said, sure. And him and I would taste together on Saturdays and as a tradition. And he would take his personal time. And we did that for about 5 years. And that really kind of served as the platform for me getting into wine.
So yesterday, some of us were fortunate enough to see a performance at Spoleto, which was like this fascinating combination of acrobatics and ballet. And through a lot of it, I kept thinking, my God, the thousands of hours that these folks must have spent in reaching this level of excellence and professionalism. And also the number of mistakes, the number of literally falls that they made along the way. you became a sommelier. That's an incredibly difficult challenge, right? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
You know, it's always been to me, wine I've always found to be is something that will forever reward your curiosity. And if you truly love it, it's something that is, again, always just rewarding with every book, detail you read. And I love to learn and I love to share. And sharing is really my love language. So being in a space where I can share the gift of wines that I love with people that I meet every day is infinitely rewarding. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And so, you know, when we talk about, you know, being a sommelier and, you know, exams and all these things, to me, there's joy in the pursuit.
There's this interesting tension with wine too, right? Which is that it's in theory it's a very social thing, and you talk about that a lot. But for many people, it's an intimidating thing. It can be an exclusionary thing. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate that? How do you kind of break down those barriers?
Well, I think I find myself to be an anomaly because, again, I never would have pictured myself getting into wine because, you know, I mean, if you knew me when I was younger, you'd say, why are you getting into wine?
Yeah, what did you think you were going to be when you?
But I realized that wine is just a beverage, right? It's just something you put in a glass. The culture that, you know, I would see around wine I didn't need to be part of that culture. I just wanted to drink wine and enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah.
So when I kind of realized that, I realized that, you know, I could shape the culture of how I see wine, and I could include the people that felt maybe left out in wine by doing that way.
Right.
And that's kind of really what we sought to do with Graft, is to kind of define that and show people that there's another way to do it, and this way might be a little more fun.
So, you know, you've become a sommelier at Charleston Grill, and for many folks in wine, that would be kind of like, that's where you stop. What a great job, what a fantastic accomplishment. And people might spend decades doing that kind of job. What is it about you? What made you feel like, okay, now I need to do something different. Now I need to go out on my own?
Yeah, because, you know, I think the grill was really great and they supported every part of my career. But at a certain point in time, I began to realize that I needed more, and I needed to be in a space where I could truly be myself. And I had all of these ideas, and I would share them with Rick, and, you know, he was very kind because he would listen to all my rants. And it became very clear at one point. It was like, go do your own thing. You've got all these ideas, pursue them, put them to life. And I was lucky to get an opportunity to do so, and I'm still doing that every day.
And what about the location of Graft? Was there an intentionality to that? Why did you pick that place?
Oh man, we lucked out. Honestly, we were looking for a space downtown, and, you know, with wine shops, the location is so important, right? Because it has to be very convenient. Because in reality, if you talk to enough people, no one really enjoys buying wine. I mean, some people do, but a lot of people, we talked about that.
What happens? What is it when they come in and
right?
they're uncomfortable?
I don't mean for all people, but I think historically, you know, the idea of buying wine has been a chore. If you don't know about wine, then you're like, I'm not looking forward to this. I don't know anything about wine. I have to go think too much. I might go to a shop. They're going to convince me to spend more money than I want to. It just, for a lot of people, is an uncomfortable experience. So in my perspective, when we were looking for Graft, we're like, it needs to be in a place that's kind of convenient for people. People need to see it as, okay, I'm going to go here because it's not going to, you know, mess up my day or my plans, right? It's just kind of conducive to what I'm already doing.
Right.
So we wanted a place that would be neighbors to places that people we knew were already going. So when we saw a location that was open right next to Leon's and Little Jack's and all these restaurants that we really loved downtown, we were like, that's the spot.
Now, was that scary or unnerving for you to leave the security of the job that you had and say, okay, I'm going to strike out, I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
I think for most people, they would say maybe, yeah, but I was so confident. I knew with Graft, this needs to happen and I need to do it. I never, ever had a doubt. I was so convinced I needed to be there.
Any moments of uncertainty or surprises along the way?
Sure.
Moments where you're like, maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
The day our banquet got delivered, so we have this L-shaped banquet in Graft, and unfortunately, the people that fabricated the banquet for us, they had delivered it there was some miscommunication with our interior designer. It was designed the opposite mirror direction. So, I mean, this was quite, I mean, it took like, you know, it was a 6-month process to get this thing, you know, and whatever. And I think anyways, that was maybe one of the most depressing days of my life in the last few years. But our interior design, I mean, Miles and I had lost all confidence. We were completely broken, and our interior designer showed up, and she, and I left, and I came back, and it was all perfect. And she was like, a little bit of Tetris and patience still works.
Still works.
So,
I want to come back to that question that you're talking about the fact that for many people, the experience of buying wine is unpleasant or intimidating or uncertain. How many folks in the room feel that way? Don't be shy. Come on. Everyone is that confident? All right, well, it's Charleston. Yeah. People know their wine.
People know their wine. See, that's what Graft is done for them.
But we talked a little bit earlier about the concept of democratizing wine, right? I know in the wine world, this is a big deal. There's a lot of concern about the next generation, whether or not people are just going to be drinking, hard seltzers, and also reaching out to communities that have not particularly been engaged or involved or been wine drinkers in the past, Black Americans, for example. You sort of, when we talked about it, you winced a little bit at the term democratizing wine, but I wonder if you can speak to your perspective as a Black man and also as a next generation entrepreneur about how you do that and how you enlarge that community.
You know, one of the issues that I had with wine when I first started to get into it is that I quickly realized that wine is really, or wine culture, for the longest time has been built around a culture of exclusivity. And, when you talk about the idea of luxury brands, because a lot of wine has been promoted as luxury brands now, or a certain lifestyle, that really kind of excluded many people from participating in wine. And so I think when I first started to get into it, I had a hard time imagining where I would stand in the industry. And I was very lucky to come across a few people, Andre Mack, Dylan Proctor, both people I really find to be mentors and people that I've really kind of built my career following. I realized that there was a way to do it, and for the longest time, going back to the 70s, you hear people talking about wine, saying, "We want to make wine fun. We want to make wine accessible. We want to, democratize wine." And that's been, a campaign for the wine industry for 30 years. And so I've always felt like as collectively we've failed because we're still talking about democratizing wine in 2023.
Yep.
And that really shouldn't be the case. And so when we created Graft, we wanted to make it, without apology, a very fun, driven community space. And we tell people, you don't have to know anything about wine, because that's true. That's my job. It's my job to learn how to communicate with you and how to get you where you're going and what you need.
Yeah, I love your approach. So I'm fortunate enough to once in a while get to go out to Napa. And, one of the priorities of Napa Valley Vintners, which is the trade organization there, is that they want to find some people of color to buy vineyards. Right, which is this very interesting project. It's important, but it's not necessarily democratizing wine, because inherently, the kind of people who can buy vineyards are not, right? They're not like most of us. What you're talking about is democratizing in a number of sort of different ways, really from a more community-based approach.
For sure, I think a community-based approach, a language approach, the way I train my staff to talk about wine. The way we encourage people to be very comfortable with their questions, their thoughts, their opinions, the prices they want to spend, just making the experience change. Right. And that's something I actually really learned at Charleston Grill. My mentor, the maitre d' Mickey Bax, would always talk about the experience people had when they left the dining room. And for us, it's really important in Graft. We want you to leave feeling like, those old commercials in the 90s, dude, you got a Dell, that excitement. That exact same experience. We want you to feel super excited for walking out of with a bottle of wine from Graft.
And ask Femi what he's doing next, if you're prepared to talk about that, and also if there are any wines you'd like to recommend.
Yeah, for sure. Really, we're just kind of exploring.
What are you drinking now?
We're exploring things right now, and so hopefully we'll have a more definite answer on what we're doing next soon. But what I'm drinking changes every day. I think that's one of the joys of wine. I've always told people wine to me is like music. What I feel like listening today, even at this moment, might change in a few hours, might change if the sun comes out, might change if it's raining, might change on what story I've heard, might change on who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's always consistent is that I'm always looking for the next great glass of wine. And so I always have something that, you love to drink. Riesling, Pinot Noir, I've got a wine that I'm thinking might, change your world.
All right. So I was lucky enough to be able to get out to the shop and the wine bar yesterday, 700 King Street, right? 700 King. All right. Femi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.